Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today and joining our webinar. This is the last webinar of our three-part webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Financial Inclusion in Action, Unlocking Credit Union Resources for Educators. And we are going to be joined by two amazing guest speakers from local credit unions. And I am so grateful that they will be joining us today. Now, before I go any further, I just want to let you all know that this webinar is being recorded. Okay, so if you've joined our webinars before, you probably know a little bit about me, but if this is your very first time, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Milady Garcia, and it is my honor and joy to serve as the Special Populations Program Supervisor for FEP. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. My background is in early childhood special education, early childhood general education, and Spanish literature with a focus in Latin American studies. I've worked as an interpreter and translator. I've worked as an early childhood intervention specialist. Currently, in my role, I support financial education for our most underserved students and communities. And something that I want you to know about me is that I opened my first bank account while I was in college. I have been working for years, but I still didn't feel comfortable going to a bank and opening an account. And I remember the feeling of being intimidated and my heart was racing. But afterwards, I felt really empowered and like I had really taken a solid step into adulthood. So that's a little bit about me. I want to now take this opportunity to introduce our guest speakers. Today, we will be joined by Amy Fox. She is a financial educator for the Boeing Employee Credit Union. I didn't know that's what BECU stood for, so I wanted to spell it out. I don't know if any of you knew. We're also going to be joined by John Maroney, the Financial Engagement Manager for Numerica Credit Union. It is such a pleasure and honor for me to have you join our webinar and lend your expertise to our participants. Thank you so much. So let's go over some learning objectives and agenda. So I'm going to be talking about data relating to unbanked and underbanked individuals here in Washington State and some of the barriers that are impeding them from joining our financial system. We're going to learn about low barrier accounts designed to promote financial inclusion for individuals across Washington. And of course, we're going to hear from our guest speakers from BECU and Numerica Credit Union and how they deliver in-person financial education presentations in schools throughout Washington. So now that you know a little bit about what we're going to be doing today and a little bit about me, I want to tell you a little bit about the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership, otherwise known as FEP. I will be referring to us as FEP from now on. We are an education board administratively housed in the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. We were created to improve and promote financial education in Washington State for K-12 public and private schools. To achieve this, we have a two-prong approach. We provide professional development and training opportunities to educators and education-adjacent professionals at no cost to district or educators. And we've also developed a clearinghouse of financial education instructional materials that have been vetted. Most of them are also available at no cost, and you can access them through our website, fep.org. Additionally, I want to tell everyone we have a financial education grant. The grant is going away December 31st of 2025. So I want to make sure you guys know about it so that if your districts have not applied, you get in touch with your EGMS grant manager and apply for this grant. There are funds available. I don't want you to miss out. This is the last year of the grant and you literally only have 30 days to apply. Okay. So now let's get a little bit more into our content. We're going to be talking about the causes and the barriers that individuals that experience financial exclusion have to contend with. When I say financial exclusion, I'm referring to the experience of not being unable to access essential financial services like checking, savings accounts, credit, insurance, or loans. Due to socioeconomic barriers or institutional requirements, not being able to meet those criteria. I'm hoping that throughout this webinar series, you feel like you've built community. I've had guest speakers in all of our webinars for this webinar series because I want to give them an opportunity to share the amazing work that they're doing. I want to give you an opportunity to learn about resources that are available for yourselves, for your students, for your communities. I want to share best practices, right? Sometimes the topic of financial exclusion and banking can be a sensitive one, and knowing how best to approach it from, having that sensitivity, having that eye for inclusion and awareness of the different barriers that our students may be having to contend with is always a good practice to have. And last but not least, I'm hoping that this leads to individuals feeling motivated to reach their financial goals, break down those barriers, learn more and feel more comfortable with our financial system, and hopefully make some choices that meet their needs. So when we talk about financial inclusion and financial exclusion, we're not going to say, this is better than that. We're just going to share information and say, hey, these are the options available. This is the cost and service this provides. This is the cost and service that provides, and make sure that you choose knowing what service and product best meet your needs. So now let's talk about what financial exclusion looks like in Washington State. So currently, we have over 100,000 individuals in Washington that are unbanked. Now, when I say unbanked, I mean they do not have a checking or savings account with a bank or a credit union. And these are financial institutions. From now on, I'm going to refer to banks and credit unions as financial institutions, so I don't have to specify which one I mean. Additionally, we have over 1 million individuals in Washington who are underbanked. And the term underbanked refers to individuals who may have a checking accounts or a savings accounts with a financial institution, but are still using alternative banking services that usually come at a higher cost, but are very convenient to use because they're in the communities that they live in. They usually hire these alternative banking service agencies, usually hire individuals from their communities, people who look like them, people who sound like them, people who speak the same language that they speak, and usually have had the same experiences. And this is all to help customers develop a rapport with those representatives from those alternative banking services. So usually people feel very comfortable, it's accessible. But it's important when we're talking about alternative banking services to share that they do come at a higher cost. And usually I think there's a statistic out there that says throughout the lifetime of an individual, if they are using alternative banking services frequently, they will spend as much as $40,000 during their lifetime just for services that usually you can access at no cost or a significantly lower cost with a financial institution. Again, we're not saying one is better than the other, we're just comparing services. I also want you to know this really important fact. Our students who drop out of high school without a high school diploma usually have higher rates of being unbanked. And the majority of individuals that are unbanked and underbanked are identifying as having a race other than white. So they are individuals of color. Now, I do want to hear from you guys. If you could enter Y for yes in the chat and N for no. Have you ever used an alternative banking service? And the list that I have here on the screen is not an exhaustive list. I didn't include, things like money orders. So far we have 1 yes, 2 yeses. Thank you so much for your participation, everyone. I really appreciate it. So far we have a mix of responses, right? Um, Most of you have not, but some of you have. And for those of you that have, can I ask what was the reason why you used the alternative financial service? I kind of, gave some of the reasons. There's a sense of comfort and convenience and familiarity, but I'm wondering if you feel comfortable coming off mute, you can use the raise hand feature and I'll call on you so you can share your experience. Okay, thank you. Lance is sharing that it was for him a matter of convenience. Christine is saying she was young and needed cash quick, and that's one of the reasons. Go ahead, John, please. You can come off mute.
Yeah, so I put in there that I've used a pawn shop and a payday lender. The payday lender I used primarily to see what the experience was like, because our industry, being at a credit union, we talk about them often. And it was wicked easy and wicked convenient, I will be honest. Very expensive, but easy and convenient and accessible. But I wanted to understand why people talked about them in the way that they did. And then pawn shop, just when I was younger, I needed to convert some physical items into cash quickly. And that was just the easiest way to do it. So I had some credit card debt in college and was trying to look to find some relief at that time.
I appreciate that honesty. And yeah, like it is convenient. And additionally, we're going to be talking about this later on, but they require less things. Like you don't have to meet all these criteria to access these services. Whereas with a traditional account at the bank, there are some requirements that if our students are facing certain barriers and are having certain challenges, they won't be able to meet these requirements. So it's important, again, to keep that perspective in mind. Thank you all for sharing. I really appreciate your participation. Okay, so when we're talking about financial institutions, again, we want to share as much information with our students as possible to empower them, to make them feel a little bit more aware and like they understand what these services and products that they provide are. So we want to make sure that we communicate with our students that a financial institution is a place that can keep your money safe as long as they bank with a financial institution that is insured. If they're banking with a traditional bank, not a credit union, is going to be insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation or the FDIC. If they're banking with a credit union, is going to be the National Credit Union Administrators that is going to insure 250,000, excuse me, of their funds. No matter, there could be an earthquake, there could be a fire, the bank could fail, there could be a national disaster, there could be an armed robbery. Your money is going to be safe, significantly safer than if you have it at home and, it's a lot more exposed to different dangers that can happen. We also want to make sure that our students know about the convenience of paying with a debit card instead of having money in their pocket, which is also not the safest thing. If they do need cash, they have the convenience of accessing their funds through an automated teller machine or an ATM. They have the convenience of paying bills online using their checking account by linking it to the service provider. This also not only saves money because you're not having to pay money orders or get checks and whatnot to then get a stamp or physically go to the place. You can just do it from the convenience of your smartphone or tablet, right? So you're saving money and time. And you can also save money when compared to alternative financial services. As we said earlier, it can cost over the lifetime of an individual over $40,000. And there's other convenient services that financial institutions do provide, usually at a lower cost and that do have more convenience than alternative financial services or just keeping money at home, right? Now, that being said, there are criterias that individuals need to meet in order to open an account, right? Usually you're going to need several forms of ID. One is usually not enough. You're going to need several. Additionally, you're going to need to give your social security number, your birthday, proof of address, so a bill with your name on it, some type of statement with your name on it, and an initial deposit. And that amount is gonna vary depending on what financial institution you're choosing to open the account with. And this all seems easy to access for us if we don't have barriers that we have to contend with and we can meet this criteria. But what if our classrooms look like this? Right? What if we have students who are undocumented or underdocumented and may not be able to provide a social security number? Additionally, what if a student is unhomed and isn't able to provide proof of address, right? So that's two criteria that they're not able to provide. If a student like me feels intimidated by financial institution and I had shamed, around my lack of awareness, it wasn't like I was going around asking people, "Hey, can you help me open an account? I'm not currently banked." I didn't want to disclose that because a lot of people my age at the time were already banked. There can be a language barrier, particularly for students that are recently arrived to the country and are unfamiliar with our financial system. So again, these are just some of the circumstances and barriers a student may face. They're not doing anything wrong. These are just their circumstances. I also want to share for students that face financial hardship. There was a survey done by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in 2023, and they found that the main reason individuals who were unbanked shared, was the main reason for them being unbanked was the financial barrier, like just not being able to afford that initial deposit, not having enough funds, right? The second main reason, most popular reason for being unbanked was being unable to meet monthly fees associated with having that account. So if our students are experiencing financial hardship, that's something that they may be having to contend with. Most of our students in Washington State's public schools are able to qualify for free or reduced lunch, meaning that there is some form of financial hardship at home. So this is not going to be a low number of students that may have this as a barrier. Additionally, a lack of trust in financial institutions was the third reasons individuals cited for being unbanked. They didn't trust banks, right? And if a student is coming from a family that is unbanked, they may also have that lack of trust in financial institutions. And again, let's remember alternative financial service providers, they know how to develop that rapport. They have their customer base and they feel familiar and it feels accessible and it feels easy. So it's important to bring, when you can, if you have the ability to bring representatives from local financial institutions to kind of demystify, right? To talk about the services that they provide, and it just kind of makes them real and relevant to the students, regardless of what barriers they may be facing. Now, if you have students that are special population students in your classrooms, then that they're definitely facing those barriers. Additionally, our special population students have significantly higher dropout rates than other student groups, right? On top of the barriers of being unhomed or experiencing the foster care system and experiencing a higher involuntary mobility. There are so many challenges that they have to contend with that would make it very, very difficult for them to access an account with a traditional bank or credit union. And again, I just want to bring awareness to why we should be so sensitive and careful when we're sharing information in terms of making sure that we just kind of share this is what this agency does or this is what this service provider does, and make sure you choose what makes more sense for you now and in the future and can help you meet your financial goals. Now, I wonder how many of you know whether your students are contending with some of the barriers that we just saw in the earlier slides. If you're able to share, you can come off mute and share if you think your students are contending with these barriers, what they might be, by using the raised hand feature, or you can please feel free to enter your responses in the chat. I would love to hear from you. And I'll just give 1 minute for people to enter their responses. Thank you so much. We have one participant that is sharing they have students that are experiencing homelessness, lack of trust in financial institutions, financial hardship. Are any of you, thank you so much, by the way, for your participation. Lack of parent support. They're not able to obtain documentation because of guardians, so they're probably in the child welfare system, unstable housing. So many of you are having students that are experiencing homelessness. And I'm not surprised. We have a significantly high rate of unhome students. Our unhome student rate went up by 5,000 this year. So just in 1 year, it went up from about 43,000 students to over 48,000 students now experiencing homelessness. 5,000 in just 1 year. It's not showing any signs of improving. Many of our students are living doubled up, with the vast majority of our on-home students are living doubled up. And you're not able really to provide proof of address if you're, okay, you have a roof over your head, but there's nothing that's coming in the mail in your name because none of the services or the lease or the mortgage is in your name. So these are definite barriers that our students are having to contend with. Thank you so much for sharing, you guys, in the chat. And that's why I'm so excited to share the information from our partners, because partners with financial institutions, both banks and credit unions that offer low barrier accounts. And very briefly, what I want to share with you about low barrier accounts is that these are accounts that usually have less criteria that an individual has to meet in order to access those financial products and services. So, for example, an undocumented individual would be not be required to give a social security number. They can instead give an individual tax identification number or an ITIN number. If they don't have a social security number, they're able to provide just one form of ID instead of many. Usually, there is a very low initial deposit that is required, as low as $1, sometimes $5, sometimes nothing. And some of these low barrier accounts even have no monthly fee. So they are very accessible, significantly more accessible than traditional accounts. So whenever you can, if you're inviting speakers from financial institutions to come and present in your classroom, it'd be great if they can talk about the low barrier account services that they provide, if they do provide that. Okay, so I'm excited to share some lessons and activities with you guys. The first one I'm going to be sharing is called Banking Basics Card Game, and this is from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, I'm gonna say a lot of things here about the CFPB. Otherwise, that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're a federal agency that was created by Congress in 2010 to protect consumers in the U.S. from abusive practices from financial entities, but they also provide financial education resources to help individuals make informed financial decisions. They have full curriculum. Today, I'm just going to show you some of their supplemental materials. I have 2 lessons that I want to share with you from the CFPB. What I want you to know is that they have lessons and activities for all K-12 students. They have over 100 activities and lessons on their websites. When you're looking for lessons, you can filter by grade level, topic, activity duration, which is extremely convenient when you have that many lessons to choose from. These resources are free and there is absolutely no registration required. So they are very, very accessible. Now, this is the Banking Basics card game is basically like a matching game, but it's really a fun activity. There is some preparation work required. You're going to be working with groups, so you're going to be asked to break up your classroom into groups of 3 to 5 students, and you're going to want to make sure that each group has a copy of the banking product and service cards. There's a total of 14 cards. And each of the cards corresponds to 14 definitions or descriptions of banking products. So you're going to want to make sure that if you're able to laminate these, you're going to get a lot of use out of them. But if not, just print them on stock paper or a thick, hardy paper so your students don't destroy them as soon as they get them. So once you have your students broken up into groups of 3 to 5, you're going to give each student a group of the banking product and service cards, and the groups are going to select one student to be the card dealer. Your card dealer is going to deal out all of the banking product service cards until they're all out. The dealer is going to be the only student that does not get cards. So each student in the group, except for the dealer, is going to get a certain amount of cards. You're going to display the description of banking products and services either on a projector, you can write it on a chalkboard, or have it on a PowerPoint, whatever's more accessible to you. I suggest displaying it and reading it because that really does help comprehension, especially for our auditory learners. So you're going to go through all of the descriptions, and once you read the first description, the student is going to have the opportunity to look at the cards that they have, and the student that has the card that describes or matches that description is going to give that card to the dealer who's going to put it on in the middle of the table. Once you see that all dealers in each group have a card in the middle of the table, you're going to call on each of them individually to give you the answer. Every group with a correct answer gets 1 point, and that card gets put to the side face up. If a group gives you an incorrect answer, then the dealer gives that card back to the student that gave them the card, and they keep playing until you go through all of the definitions. So this should lead to good conversation about, hey, how does this sound? Does this sound like something that you feel is a banking service or product that you could use? Why would it be useful now or in the future? You want them to start thinking about these products and services as something that is useful and something that is usually getting them, to consider either now or in the future, how could this benefit me or would it benefit me? At the end of the game, if you end up with a group of two groups that are tied for points, they have a really creative way of like kind of breaking this tie, which would be basically to have the groups organize the banking product service cards in alphabetical order, and the group that organizes is the quickest is the winner. If you want to give, some stickers and some nice gifts out, that's always great, but you don't have to. It's just a fun activity that can get students to kind of remember and become more familiar with banking terms, services, and products so they're less intimidated by them in the future. So before I move on to another lesson, I actually want to do this with you guys. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to win some FEP swag today. So we're going to kind of play this game ourselves. I'm going to read a description of a banking product or service, and you are going to tell me from the banking service cards that you have displayed in the screen which one best matches the description that I will read to you. The participant that types the correct answer in the chat the quickest will be receiving some FEP swag. We will be mailing some FEP swag out to you. Hope everybody's ready. I'm going to start reading. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Okay, I see some thumbs up. I'm going to get going. All right. So pay attention here. I'm going to start. An open-ended loan that allows you to borrow money to us up to a certain limit and carry over an unpaid balance from month to month. There is no fixed time to repay the loan as long as you make the minimum payment due each month. You pay interest on any outstanding loan balance. Okay, so we have here SDUCLOS. You are our winner, my friend. Credit card is the correct answer. Thank you so much. I think they put the answer in before I was even done reading. So very, very well done. Thank you so much. And if you could enter your email in the chat, I will connect with you after the webinar so that you can give me your information and we can mail you that FEP swag. And this is all in the spirit of Christmas. We're in the holiday spirit. This is the last webinar, and I wanted to make sure I did something really special. Thank you so much for sharing your email. I have one more activity from the CFPB. So you already know a lot about the CFPB. I'm not going to go over it. This activity is a little different. You can have your students work either individually or in groups for this activity, but regardless of whether they choose to work in a group or not, you're going to want them to fill out their student worksheet on their own. So this is what they're going to be doing. You're going to need them to have access either to a computer or a tablet. And what they're going to be asked to do in this activity is to research a local financial institution, either a bank or a credit union, and find out about the financial services and products that they offer, what fees they charge, do they have special services and products for students, that kind of information, again, to get students a little bit thinking about, is this a financial institution that I would feel comfortable banking with? Are they offering services that I may need now and in the future? How could this help me in my current financial circumstance? Again, completely free, very easy to access. And I just remembered that I wanted to enter the links for these activities in the chat. And I will do that now. Here's this latest one, and I will enter the one for the previous activity. Okay. So there are those links for you if you want to check those out. Please feel free. Again, the whole point is to get students thinking about the financial services that they may need now and in the future and get familiar with what financial products local financial institutions are able to offer. This lesson gives a tip to educators, which is it may be difficult for students to choose between financial institutions. So if you are able to prepare a list ahead of time for them to choose from, financial institutions for them to investigate through their website, that would be super helpful as well. Any questions so far on either of these lessons? Okay. I have two more resources that I want to share with you guys. So this next resource is Keys to Your Financial Future. This is a full turnkey curriculum. It was developed by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and it helps young people ages 16 to 26 who are or will soon be facing adult responsibilities build their financial skills. This resource is also free and does not require registration. Keys to Your Financial Future is a pretty special curriculum. It was developed with the help of experts from around the country, including social workers and young people who had experienced the child welfare system and share what they wish they had known about personal finance as they entered adulthood. So that makes the content of the curriculum very relevant to the experience of all students, but particularly experiences of students who may have been involved in the juvenile rehabilitation system, may have experienced the foster care system, may have been unhomed, and may have had, challenging experiences. So again, one of the things that I like about this resource is that it is a full curriculum. This unit or key, because they call their units keys or their segments or chapters keys, is the seventh key. And I'm going to share that link in the chat. Excuse me 1 second here. I had it and lost it. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. So there is that PDF linked in the chat. So one of the things that I like about this key is that it offers it's a little more extensive. So the previous two activities and lessons from the CFPB were brief. They were more supplemental. This is more of a full unit that goes a little bit more extensively into financial services, financial products, what to consider, how to keep your personal information safe. And one of the things that I really like about this activity is that it has students do a little bit more legwork. So they're having to research not one financial institution, but three and compare kind of what services they offer. And there's a really cool question here that I circled in red is the second one. Do I feel welcome? I can't express how important it is for students to have that initial experience with a financial institution be a positive one. If you don't feel welcome, if you feel like you're discriminated, if you feel like you don't belong, it can be a pretty traumatic experience and it can turn you off from joining the financial system for a while, right? So we want to make sure that, again, we are connecting with financial institutions in our communities, the communities where our students live, that are promoting that feeling of everyone is welcome. We have services, we're having low barrier accounts, and we're here to support you in your financial journey. Hopefully, financial institutions are good actors and are trying to do good work to support people so that they can meet their financial goals. Again, this is the Keys to Your Financial Future, and it's from the Annie Casey Foundation, another free resource that requires no registration. Now, I have one last resource that I want to share with you guys, and this one comes from the Federal Trade Commission. Oh, it looks like the video is trying to play. Give me 1
Sarah
second.
wanted a savings account to help her save.
Okay, so sorry about that. Sarah wanted a savings account. We're going to stop there. And I'm going to keep sharing some information about the Federal Trade Commission. So the Federal Trade Commission is also a federal agency created to protect U.S. consumers from bad actors, but they also provide financial education resource. It's called consumer.gov. Let's share that link in the chat. Okay, here we go. Okay, in consumer.gov, some of the special features of this resource is that it explains financial terms really simply because it was created primarily for individuals that were new to our financial system who were recently arrived to the United States. So I really like how simply they explain financial terms and financial concepts. Additionally, another cool feature of this resource that is also free and requires no registration, very easy access, is that the resources are available in 5 languages. So you have English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. Again, very inclusive, especially for students that are recently arrived and they are not English dominant, have English as a second language. So now we're going to play this very brief, it's just a 1 minute, 30-second video that goes over some of the criteria an individual may consider when opening an account and choosing between a bank or a credit union. Let's see if I can restart this one.
For a car. And she wanted a checking account to pay her bills. She went to a bank near her office. Sarah was surprised that they charged a monthly fee for anyone with less than $1,000 in the bank. So Sarah decided to do some homework. She made a list of the things that were important to her. She wanted a bank with lots of ATMs. She didn't want to pay fees, so she wanted a bank that let her keep a low minimum balance without charging her extra. She also wanted a bank that paid interest on both her savings and checking account. Knowing what she wanted, Sarah compared a credit union with another bank. The credit union didn't have many ATMs, but she could use any other credit union's ATM for free. There were no fees and no minimum balance required, and both accounts paid a small interest rate. The bank had lots of ATMs. It also had fees if her balance went below $300. The savings account paid interest, but not the checking account. Sarah thought the bank might be more convenient, but she worried about paying fees if her balance went below $300. And she liked the idea of getting interest, even a little bit, on her money. Sarah decided the right place to help her save and pay her bills was the credit union. But it was a tough decision.
Okay, and the CFPB has other short clips that are just as informative and just as helpful at explaining different financial products and services. So now, there are a lot of different services and different banking options that students can choose from. There are more now, I think, than ever before. And 3 of the main one, I know this is, before I go on, I should say this is a very busy slide, but we have, the slides are available directly linked with a PDF. So if you haven't received that yet, that will be going out to you. So don't worry about reading through everything in the slide. I know there's a lot of content in there. The main idea here is that we want to make sure our students understand the difference between traditional banking, online banking, and mobile banking. With traditional banking, you're going to have a physical branch, you're going to have an in-person teller that can take cash deposits. With online banking, you're not going to have the in-person option. You're going to have a web browser, right? So you're going to do this entirely online. It's not possible for you to deposit cash in the same way you would do with a traditional bank. You can deposit cash using that online bank's ATM if they have them, and you can also access, of course, funds through an ATM. Usually both traditional banking and online banking offer a lot of security, right? Sometimes online banking has lower fees because they don't have the overhead costs of traditional banks, right? Now, mobile banking, all it is mobile apps, right, that allow you to bank using or manage your accounts using a smartphone or a tablet. It's not really a financial institution, is just an application linked to your account that you can utilize to manage your funds, pay bills, and do a lot of your financial transactions. These are kind of like the highlights of those 3. And we want to make sure that our students understand those. Additionally, there are other financial service providers, and our youth are usually using these pretty frequently. So one of them is Apple Pay and Google Pay. These are secure and they may be very convenient because they're digital wallets. The reason why they're secure is because they're linked directly to your bank account or financial institution account. And hopefully, because you're awesome teachers and your students are always listening, they've chosen a financial institution that is federally insured either by the FDIC or the NCUA, which means that their funds are safe even if they pay the wrong merchant. There's usually a way to resolve that mistake or error. Venmo and Cash App are a little different. These are peer-to-peer transfers, but raise privacy concerns and may not necessarily be insured if they're not linked to a bank account. Klarna and Affirm are buy now, pay later options. I have some concerns with our youth using buy now, pay later. Yes, we will share the slides. Kelly, thank you for your question. As I was saying, I have some concerns about our youth using buy now, pay later. It can be convenient in a pinch. I just get worried that it can create, a habit of getting into debt. If you use that service too frequently and are not managing your resources, it can lead to just kind of overextending yourself. And it's hard to build, positive financial habits early on. So yes, it's good for students to be aware. Maybe use the service if you don't have another option, but try to stay away from it as much as possible and just kind of work with the cash and the funds that you have available. And Chime is one of those new kind of neo banks that came into the scene as a fee-free bank, and it's basically a financial technology company that does deliver the same services as a traditional bank or credit union, and it's usually partnered with a bank or credit union that is federally insured. And what we want our students to keep in mind is it's important for them to have to bank with an insured financial institution, but they want to make sure also that their information is protected. They can ask questions, right? Like, what do you do with my data? What do you do with my social security number once I open an account? The person that, either a teller or a representative that comes into your classroom should be able to answer those questions, right? Do they report to credit bureaus? And if you've already discussed, credit and credit bureaus, that would be a good, question to ask also, because if you link your services like paying your electricity bill, paying other monthly services to your account, and you choose to have that be reported to credit bureaus, you can start building a credit history even before you turn 21, if you're paying those bills on time. So it's just good information for our students to know. Oh, thank you, Christine, for sharing. One of our participants is sharing they have a family member who used Affirm but canceled before the service was provided. They were still charged $600 as a service fee. Yikes. Whoa. It wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to connect with the Federal Trade Commission and see how legal that is. Because again, they're there to protect us from bad actors. And that just seems like a very hefty fee. Even if it is a service fee, that's a lot of money. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. Just kind of like a warning tale, right? For all of us who have been thinking maybe of accessing that service. Thank you for sharing. Now, we also want to make sure that we share kind of some tips and tricks with our students when it comes to banking and doing smart bankies, right? All this data for me is kind of fascinating. In 2023, Americans paid over $7.9 billion in overdraft fees. So that means that they overextended themselves, spend more money than what they had available in their account, and financial institutions do charge a rather hefty fee when you go, over your limit. It can be as much as $35, even higher, depending again on the financial institution. So we want to make sure when our students are considering being banked, either with a credit union or a bank, make sure that they check their balance regularly. Get into the habit of checking on that account and see how it's doing. Use in-branch ATMs to avoid fees. If you need to deposit money into the ATM or get money out of the ATM, make sure that you're doing that with ATMs that are in branch so that you're not paying every time you're using an ATM. It could be a small fee, as small as $1, but it could be high as $5, and it adds up, right? So we want to make sure our students are being savvy. Set up direct deposit so that you don't have to take the extra step of taking a picture of your check or physically having to go into a branch and deliver that check in person. Direct deposit is very easy to do. Most employers have no problem doing it. And again, it saves you time and money. Protect your information. So all of your information linked to banking, like your social security number, your date of birth, but also your banking number, your account number, and your routing number are very, very important information. Make sure that students understand they should share that information with absolutely no one. Enable transaction alerts so that if you're running low, and you're like your last $10 in the account, you enable those alerts to let you know, hey, you better not spend any more money until you make more money or deposit some more money into that account. And this is all part of just building good habits, right? We want to make sure that our students, it's a lot of information to remember. And when you're entering adulthood, there's a lot going on. But if we start talking about it early, the importance of banking, of being banked, the importance of understanding the terms and requirements to be banked, it should be able to be more digestible for all students. So these are just some of the things that I want you guys to remember. I want to take a moment here to look at the chat. Thank you so much for being so active. Our workshops are going to be recorded. They're all recorded, so you can access them through our website, feb.org. And we have Christy sharing information about her 21-year-old looking for a checking account and was charged $5 from her savings as an overdraft transfer. I mean, I show her that she had lost $65 in just 6 weeks. Oh my goodness gracious. These are the hard lessons though. Like it's important for if they have those experiences, and it's how we frame it, right? We want to make sure that we say, you had this experience. Don't say mistake. You made this mistake, because it's just, again, so shameful, and they may get scared again. You had this experience. This is the experience that led you to lose $65. It's okay. I mean, we're not going to get it back, but hey, there was a lesson learned there. And those painful life lessons absolutely are ones that we don't forget ever, because it hurts, especially when you're not having a lot of money. To lose $65, that's tough. That is really tough. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before I move on and cede the floor to our friend John Maroney from Numerica Credit Union, I want to ask briefly if you guys have any questions. Okay, John, get ready, because it looks like you are up, my friend.
Okay, very cool. Well, yeah, thanks for letting me join y'all. You should be seeing my presentation. Is this what you see? Beautiful. Okay, great. Yeah, so John Maroney, Numerica Credit Union. I'm headquartered out in Spokane Valley, Washington. I'm at our headquarters right now. And so excited. I saw some people who are from the central part of the state and the eastern part of the state on the call, which is just so cool for me. Man, really excited to be here and talking about kind of ways to support financial educators. I'm going to be brief in my introduction. So I'm a credit union certified financial counselor, have been since 2016, met with about 1,000 individuals and couples to talk through their money, do a lot of local presenting at schools, nonprofits, and businesses on all sorts of financial topics, ranging from basics of credit reports to money and relationships to the psychology of money, just cover a lot of different stuff. I'm also the son of an elementary school teacher who just retired after 50 years of teaching. So I love me some educators. And I think, a little bit that I like to share whenever I'm talking about money is what I would call my money story, which is just, hey, who are some of the key influences in my financial life, and how do they impact how I show up today? And for me, that is my mom. She is a single mom. Raised me and my two brothers by herself. And the central belief that she had around money was that money will always come or money will always be there. And it's carried her to multiple homes and financial independence. And she had the most significant impact on my personal views on money. And that mentality served me really well. And the reason that I share that is a lot of what we learn about students and young adults is that much of how we feel about money, not what we know, but how we feel, can be programmed into us by the time we're 7, 8 years old. And so the prime associations that your students have around money came from many years ago and often from childhood experiences. And so just something to keep in mind is you might be delivering the best technical education that they have ever experienced, but it might not be resonating because there are powerful money scripts at play that keep that from landing. And so I often talk with educators about the impact of classroom financial education, which I don't have to tell any of you all. You're doing the work. But and this is, again, I have links in my slides, but CNBC put out a great article a little while ago that said taking a personal finance course at some point in K through 12 education worth like $100,000 plus over the course of someone's lifetime. I would argue that it may be higher, especially if you can get someone to invest from a young age. But I think that the work that you all do can help change that narrative. So thanks for being out there and doing it. And then we want to talk about what are ways that we can be of support to you. And so again, I referenced this in the chat. Someone was talking about using Dave Ramsey's curriculum or the Ramsey curriculum. There are lots of good financial education curriculums you can lean on. Next Gen Personal Finance is one of my favorites. They have trimester courses, semester courses, stuff for adult learners, stuff for teen learners, and it's free for any educators to access. The Khan Academy Personal Finance content is also free and is awesome. A lot of it is video based. And then I think one of the other things that we can do to help change some of the narrative around financial education, because for some people it has a bad rap, they think it's maybe ineffective and not useful, is inviting industry experts into your classroom as guest speakers. Amy and I both work at credit unions, and our jobs are often to be released into the community to talk about money in a safe and approachable way. So local credit unions, and most local credit unions, have a version of us that works for them. And we are here to be a resource for you. And then local financial advisors, often, like we have local financial advisors here in Spokane who are often willing to talk about complex financial subjects. So again, we have a whole investing in wealth creation content that we cover with high school students. But sometimes folks might want someone who can give even next level stuff. And they are a great resource. And then there's also culturally relevant content that's available. So HopeLink Financial Capabilities is an organization that developed financial education content in multiple languages, both for facilitator and participants, and has been well vetted. So if you have the resource in your school of someone who speaks a language of some of your students, so like here in Spokane, we have a ton of folks who speak Russian and Ukrainian. We have a very large refugee population. We have folks who from the Marshall Islands who speak Marshallese. These are resources that can be available in those situations. I think one of the other things that we love to do at Numerica, and I think is really effective, is we weave games into all of our content. There is not a financial education workshop that we will host that doesn't include a game. And so Next Gen Personal Finance has a wonderful arcade. If we're talking about credit, we might play Shady Sam, the loan shark, where people will come to borrow money from us and we want to rip them off by offering them the worst loan terms that we can. But it helps understand the cost of borrowing for students. They now have a new thing called, I think, Shady Sam, the used car dealer, where it simulates folks going to a car dealership and feeling what that experience can be like. And then we have invested in what's a game that's called Cashy, which is a digital life simulator investing game. And again, I've included the link. If you're an educator and you want to try that for free, you can play 3 games for free. And each student plays on a computer or a smartphone. They get a job, they have an income, they make purchasing decisions, they make investing decisions, and it simulates 5 years of adult life in a really cool and interactive way. We like it because it allows us to introduce different investment options, individual stocks, bonds, share certificates, or CDs, which are making such a comeback right now, and not the compact discs, the savings accounts, and then index fund investments, cryptocurrencies, a lot of things that students are learning about from YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, and we can help control the narrative for them about what's safe to invest in and what's risky. And then there are a lot of good financial wellness nonprofits available, and many credit unions partner with these. So we work with an entity called GreenPath Financial Wellness that offers financial counseling in 100 different languages. It's a free resource that anybody can access. They also offer what are called debt management plans to help people pay down their credit card debt without some of the impacts that comes with debt settlement. And so again, I'm kind of breezing through here because I want to make sure and leave time, plenty of time for Amy. But local credit unions have invested in a lot of financial wellness resources that they use for their members in the community, and we want you to take advantage of us. So like GreenPath, for example, has limitless capacity, evening and weekend hours, and is available in 100 languages. We don't have that resource locally at our credit union, so we invest in that partnership so anyone can use it. And again, I've dropped a QR code in here for our what's called our Starting Off Right content. This is specifically where we come to classrooms and we deliver financial education content on these areas. You can connect with myself or go on our website, numericacu.com, to get support for you and your students. And what I'm finding is students are most interested in credit and building wealth because that is the sexy stuff. Budgeting, telling someone to be on a budget is like telling them to exercise and eat their vegetables. Wildly important. Not very many people are interested in hearing about it. And so we will talk on any financial subject, but I'm just finding like when I'm in classrooms, that's what students are hungry for. And then paying for education, because we'll drop some tips that often don't show up, like that you can negotiate certain forms of financial aid, or that, hey, if your financial circumstances have changed from, prior year when you filled out the FAFSA to now, especially if it's gotten worse, you should let your university know that. So and again, I already talked a little about GreenPath, but they're just an awesome resource. Again, no language barrier to accessing their services. And again, the link is in the slides that'll go out to everybody. And then specifically some things that are, so basically, especially for my Eastern and Central Washington educators, if you want us in your classroom, please hit us up. BECU is in our market, but Amy has got the West Side covered for you all. I am like 5 hours away from you, so I cannot show up in your space. And then some other resources that Numerica has, low barrier accounts came up. So we offer ITIN accounts and lending for those who don't have social security numbers. We are also one of the few industries that banks CANA businesses and offers personal accounts for CANA employees. Because with federal regulation, sometimes that can be tricky to get done. And then again, true for me and so many of my credit union peers, accounts with no minimum balances or monthly service fees. And again, I never want to pick on any financial institutions by name, so I won't. But the reality is, for a lot of places, if you don't have cash, it'll cost you to have an account. And at credit unions, that is just not what we do. It's not how we operate. And so I couldn't recommend any credit union highly enough. So, and then I just want to drop in some of my favorite recommended resources, especially books and other websites. So, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin, who is the matron saint of the FIRE movement, the Financial Independence Retire Early movement. Get Good with Money by Tiffany Aliche. She's also known as the Budgetnista. Great website, Instagram profile, etc. My Money My Way by Kamiko Love or Miko Love. She's a local to Spokane Valley, known as the Budget Mom. She has about 800,000 followers on Instagram. Is a fantastic resource. I've met her personally, and she's fantastic. And then I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And I tried to focus on resources that come from diverse backgrounds and experiences. And then these are just some of my favorite podcasts that I recommend any student listen to. If I could get every student in America to listen to one podcast episode, it would be Planet Money's Brilliant versus Boring, episode 688, which is about the invention of the index fund, which totally revolutionized investing, made it way easier for people. And then Million Bazillion by Marketplace, which is specifically for kids. My daughter's 5, and we listen to this podcast together. So, and then again, look other ways that Numerica can help. Again, got great products, great services, but especially in classroom support for financial education. So again, we're here to be a resource if you need us.
Thank you so much, John. Wow, you shared so many amazing resources. I love the fact that you share books. I love the fact that you shared the podcast because I'm always looking for a good book to read. Um, I also love Tiffany Aliche. I had the pleasure of meeting her in person at the CEE conference in New Orleans
Oh, wow.
in
Sweet.
October. It was amazing. She's a phenomenal
Yep.
presenter. I love her book. I've seen her documentary, so I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before I move on to Amy Fox from BECU, does anyone have any questions for John? Okay, hearing none, we will thank you again, John, for participating today. We will pass it over to Amy Fox from BECU. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here today. Oh, you're muted, Amy.
I knew I was going to do that too when you when you first started. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Amy Fox, and I am one of 3 financial educators here at BECU. And again, I have some little bit of background on that. Am I sharing my screen or is this you?
Sorry, Amy. It should be you. You're set up to share screen.
There we go. I think it's actually me now.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so just a little bit of background about me. Again, my name's Amy Fox. I actually come from an education background. I have a BA and an MA in education. I also have my admin certificate. I worked in public education for 18 years before switching into the credit union world. And I love being a presenter, and my big passion is content and e-learning development. So that's what I get to spend a lot of my time doing, and that really came out of education. As far as some of you might remember when we used to have um, the WASA, and we had all sorts of things back 20 years ago, and then they decided to change up all of our standards. And maybe you were like me, and there was not going to be a curriculum adoption for quite a few years. And so I started developing and creating our own content to meet new curriculum, and that's kind of where I began my passion for developing content. And now I get to do that for financial education. My big why for education to start with is I always like those aha moments. I think that's a pretty um, universal for teachers, is they got that. But that big aha really came from a teacher that I had when I was in high school. And they just basically, I didn't have a plan to go to college. They just said, "You're too smart to not go to college." So for all of you teachers, I hope I just give you like that little boost, like you make a difference every day in people's lives. And that's where I first got mine. I was a junior in high school. I'm like, oh, I could go to college. I know how to study. And so it kind of became that. And it's kind of evolved from that aha with math, which is my background, to the aha moments in life that everyone has. So whether that is buying your first house, getting out of debt, or just doing this savings goal, starting an emergency fund up. That's a big aha where someone goes, "Oh, I can do this. I can save $5 a week if I cut out 1 cup of coffee. I can make my financial goals a reality." And so that's like where my passion is right now. So I'm so glad that I get to do that, but I also get to share this knowledge. And so I want to talk just a little bit about BECU. And why we're called BEC, right? So in 1935, in the height of the Great Depression, there was a man, and I'm going to make sure I get his name right, William Dodge, and he was reading about credit unions, and he worked for Boeing. And at the time, in order to be a Boeing employee, you had to bring your own tools to work. And so Dodge was reading about credit unions. He and 18 other employees put in 50 cents together. They started what they called Fellowship Credit Union, and they gave their first loan for $2.50 so another employee could buy a tool and continue to work. And so from there, Boeing, they changed from Fellowship Credit Union to Boeing Employees Credit Union, and now we go by BECU. Just as credit unions grow, they usually start with a common goal. This one was helping Boeing employees. We're now, as John mentioned, we're statewide. Anybody that lives, works, or worships in the state of Washington is eligible to apply for membership. And we also have zero balance fees, low, you can, ITAN, and all the things that we've been talking about for credit unions. I will say that, just throw this out there, I have not ever worked in a branch. I wouldn't know how to open your own account if you had one. My background comes all from the education side of things. But BECU as a whole has this purpose statement that you see on your screen. As a cooperative, we bring people together to improve financial well-being of our members and their communities. That is our ultimate goal. And so how do we get to do that? How do I get to do that? Well, through lots of different resources. We offer services to our members, right? That makes sense to everyone for most. It also includes our communities, right? We're as strong as our communities are, and we want to help everyone in our community with that. We support businesses, whether through financial education, to their employees and and as business owners. And we also support classrooms. And so I want to go into a little bit of detail about how BECU might be able to help you and support you in your classroom. But we're going to start off with the financial resources available to you, because it's really hard to teach something if you don't know it, right? And we feel uncomfortable teaching things that are uncomfortable to us a lot of times. So if you are somebody who's like, I can't teach this because I don't know enough, I want to invite you to our seminars, webinars, and some experiential learning that we have available. So these are pretty straightforward, evergreen webinars and seminars. Building credit is one that is probably our most popular, right alongside debt reduction strategies. Those are the big two. We also offer a resource called Simplifying the Home Buying Process, where we have one webinar every month on that, helping people navigate that big step of purchasing a house if you've never purchased one before. We also have lots of local Western Washington, mostly, locations where they have those in person. And so we offer these on a rotating basis on our website as webinars, but we also get all sorts of requests to do this for groups. We work with colleges, we work with community groups, and anybody that wishes to can request a presentation. And we even have a couple over in Spokane that do our presentations over in that area, not to step on John's toes. But we want to be able to provide for all of our communities, and that does extend through the whole state. If you like to take 2 to 5 minutes and just learn something, I'd invite you to a new resource for us. And I can drop this in chat if I can get everything open. Right, so we have webinars, in addition to our webinars and seminars, we have free web tutorials and videos. And so these are, again, between 2 and 5 minutes. The videos are all animated little short clips that have a little tidbit of information that you can know, from managing your irregular income, like you see on the screen there. Oops, not that wasn't. To how to save money. Lots of different resources. If you're like, I want to, boost my emergency fund. How do I figure out where I can save $5 or $10? All sorts of resources for you that you can, again, then share with those that you work with and your students. And the third one I'm going to share with you, and again, these last three, these are primarily targeted at adults, is we have a financial app called Zogo that we partner with. Zogo is gamified learning. You complete modules, you earn points, and those points can be redeemed for gift cards. So if you'd like to to learn more about that, you can click on the QR code there and sign up. We do offer it for 18 and older. So there is some PII that is required. So it is adults only for this version of Zogo. And I'll come back to Zogo in a few minutes on how we also can support students. All right. High schools. So our primary target audience for our in-person sessions are high school. So we do banking, and that goes in the very basics. What's a bank? What's a credit union? What do they do, and how do they work? How to build credit. And so we talk to students, right? Those 17, 18-year-olds that are going to be moving out, right? They're beginning adulting, right? How can they build credit before they can get their own credit cards? We've got a couple of simulations that we do. Financial Reality Fair is a budgeting simulation. This can be done in a small classroom setting. It's also can be done, and maybe if you are on the Western Washington, have done some Day of Purpose things in the past where the whole school got together and does a financial reality fair where students literally are going and they're making their budgeting choices and they're figuring out, like, what does it cost for rent? What does it cost to own a car? So that's a fun one that we do a lot, both again in small classes and bigger rooms. And one of the ones that changes the most all the time, and I think John had this on his list, is understanding preventing fraud. I was a few months ago presenting in a classroom, and I was talking about the toll fraud text that came up. And as we're talking about it, like 2 or 3 minutes after that, a student literally says, "Hey, I just got that one on my phone." It was, right, timely, trying to keep up with those. And so the QR code on this screen is, if you want to request a presentation, we've got a form that you can do that. It goes to our inbox. We do in person if we can. I'm here up in Whatcom County, and I serve Whatcom and Skagit counties. I've got 2 colleagues that are further south. So we cover everywhere from Whatcom County down to Pierce County. For in person, we are more than willing to do webinars if you are not within that footprint. but that is just this is where I get my highs these days, is I get to go back into a classroom and I get to be in that environment again. I also realize when I come out of a class and you do a 6 period day and you're like, oh my goodness, how did I do this every day? So again, I always reflect on like how much energy and stamina it takes to be a teacher. And I salute you all for where you are every day for that. Like I mentioned before, Zogo has the app for adults only. There are other institutions that offer it differently than we do, but we also can provide Zogo Classroom. And so Zogo Classroom is bite-sized content. It's all aligned with the Jumpstart National financial literacy standards for you. There's a teacher portal. You go in, you set up your classes, assign content. There are some targeted middle school curriculum as well as all the adult curriculum that also really breaches that high school grade levels. And so that's really where it's designed, is about 13 plus. They are working on translating, so many of their modules are in Spanish. One of the really cool things is they've got new modules that are all about college, how to apply for college, how to fill out your FAFSA, right? So really some good content that you might not necessarily think is streamlined financial education. And they can do it anytime, on anywhere, on any device. And the teacher can see through the teacher portal what students have done. If you would like to find out more about this, I'd be glad to start a chat with you. Access is through me, amy.fox@vecu.org, and I can stick that in the chat. And again, we sponsor this for our members and community, so that community is you. So let me know if you're interested in that, and I can talk you through it. I can show you how to set it up. I have some, like, based on what class you teach, some curated playlists that might be more interesting, because there are over 800 different modules that they have, and they are all like bite-sized. And my final plug for today, and this one I'm super excited about. We have Family Financial Fun Day. We are going to be piloting this through a couple of PTOs later on in the school year in 2026. The target age range is K6. It is a family event, so it is really meant to have students and their parents work together. So one of the activities is tic-tac-toe. You answer a question, you get the X or O based on if you get the question right, and the parents, right, you can see the picture in there on budgeting. Great fun activity. If you happen to be in Western Washington, we have a Family Financial Fun Day we'd love to invite you to this Saturday from 1:30 to 3:30. It's a drop-in. Come in, see it. QR code there to register if you, again, are interested in that. Come learn about it. Bring your kids. Bring your grandkids. Borrow some kids. It is definitely more fun if you can do that full experience and go through the activities with them. And we focus on the 4 main topics that for financial health, which are save, spend, borrow, and protect. All right, and that's what I have. Love for questions. I'm going to drop my email in chat.
Thank you so much, Amy. You shared so many wonderful resources. I love that. The Family Fun Night, it does sound amazing. It does sound like so much fun. Does anyone have any questions for Amy? I saw someone in the chat already wanting to connect and requesting some presentation. So it's working. We're building community. We're leaning into those resources from partners. I love that. Anyone have any questions for Amy? I actually have a question for you, Amy, but I'm not wanting to stop any of the participants from asking. The question I have, I really like participating in those reality fairs, and we've been able to do so with other partners. I'm wondering if there's any cost to the school or the school district that requests one of those financial reality fairs. Is there any cost for that? Are you able to tell us?
No, all the financial education that we provide, whether webinar, seminar, in person, is all free to the community and members. We sponsor all of that. The family or the financial reality fairs are again, one of those things. We did one with Game Changers, Seattle Seahawks and Game Changers a few weeks ago.
Wow.
Again, all it takes a team for those ones, and so we can't set them up in a week or two, but
Hmm.
we love doing them, and so we make it a priority to kind of do that outreach and um, keep keep them going. It's so eye-opening for the high school students that participate in that. They're like, oh, you got to incorporate all of these different aspects
Yeah.
into being an adult, right? So,
Yeah.
you got to get your car. Oh, there's a car payment, or
Hmm.
you got to buy groceries. You eat, drink coffee. I mean, it has all of the aspects of that, and it's again, eye-opening. A lot of aha moments come from those types of activities.
Definitely. No, I can definitely second that. We have participated, a lot of us at the FEP team have participated in those reality fairs, and students are always surprised at how expensive life is, the cost of life overall. Like you have a car, now you need insurance and it needs gas and all of these other little things that they just kind of don't take into account. And getting jobs because they usually get a job when they're in these financial reality fairs and they're thrilled to be making $27,000. They feel like they're rich until they have to pay rent and they have to pay insurance and they have to pay utilities and food and all the other necessities. So thank you so much again to both you and John. I really, really appreciate you guys coming over and joining our webinar today. Um, and one of the things that I want to share with you, there is proof of efficacy in financial education. You've heard from two amazing guest speakers here about the impact it has. I want to tell you there's research that supports it. You know, usually delinquency rates fall and credit scores improve for individuals that have taken personal finance class. And as John Maroney mentioned, you can save about $100,000 over a course of a lifetime just by learning the habits, the good financial habits from taking a financial education class, and that cannot be overstated. Additionally, I do want to take a moment to mention that the impacts of receiving financial education are most significantly felt and most positively felt by our most vulnerable students, students that are coming from low income families. So all student benefits, but the benefit is significantly um, more for our vulnerable students. And this is information that changes lives. Like the fact that I've been able to become a homeowner, I learned so much when I joined FEP. I learned so much in the 3 years that I've been here because I now have, that self-efficacy in financial education, and I now know about the resources that are available to me. And in a very short time, I've been able to take advantage of opportunities and resources that have enabled me to meet that have enabled me to meet some of my financial goals. So please continue to have the passion that you have and do the work that you do because it does make a difference. And in order to do this work, we rely on the support of our partners. It takes a village. It takes a community to do this work and We do it well. We wouldn't be able to do it without the support of financial institutions like BECU and Numerica Credit Union that are both FEP partners, longstanding FEP partners. We also partner with government agencies, educators like you that are passionate about the work that you do, that are interested in learning best practices, interested in learning about resources available at no cost, nonprofit organizations that are also partnering to provide support with in-classroom delivery of presentations, other K-12 programs that help us, that help me as the Special Populations Program Supervisor, learn about best practices and how to understand the different barriers and challenges our students in special populations as well as other students are facing. And our legislators that created FEP that recognize that having the skill to manage your finances after you leave school is a skill that can change your life. So we are so very grateful. We are so very thankful for all of our partners and the amazing work that they do. Additionally, I want to share with you a lot of the resources that you learned about today are available through our website, fep.org, and I am going to drop the link in the chat in just a moment. And as I mentioned earlier, we have resources for all of K-12. In fact, we even have resources for pre-K students. So the earliest learners, we have an amazing resource that my coworker and colleague Amy Cleaver created. It's a financial education library with a list of, I believe, is now 42 books. Some of them are available in English and in Spanish. All of these books have a financial topic. They have main characters that have different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and different ethnicities. These are great resources to use for early learners in K-8. High school students can benefit from it too. All students like to be read to, and these are really fun, engaging stories. Additionally, every one of these books has lessons and activities that are linked directly to the books. Additionally, we also have read alouds that can be accessed once you go through our websites under resources and links. You're going to find under elementary. Even here, you're able to see where we have our financial education library and resource guides. That's where you're going to access that resource. We also have resources available in multiple languages, mainly Spanish, resources for special population students. And all of these resources, of course, are available at no cost to you. The vast majority, almost all of them, are free of charge, very easy to access, no prep, low prep resources. We have lessons, activities, simulations, as well as full turnkey curriculums and units. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, one last thing that I forgot to mention. This webinar rather is being recorded and will be available probably within the next 2 weeks. Additionally, I want to also remind you guys that our past webinars and trainings that we have done that have been recorded are available through our YouTube channel, and you can also access that through fep.org. And that is all the content that I had for you today. Thank you so much to our guest speakers, Amy Fox, John Maroney. I'm very grateful for your participation today. I'm very grateful for all the participants that joined the webinar. I'm so appreciative for your time and attention on this Monday after the holidays, first Monday after the holidays. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me, Milady Garcia at k12.wa.us. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I really appreciate you. Thank you.